you been into poetry?
So I'm 27 now, and I think I didn't really get into poetry that much until I was about 18. So when I was at school, I wasn't that into poetry at all, really. So I think that makes about 9 years, but I've been doing it as my job only for about 2 or 3 years.
You have a book.
Yes.
Are you pleased with what you've achieved from the book, do you think?
In terms of getting a book?
Yeah.
I am pleased because it was really, really hard work to do. I think there are 50 poems in the book, so it took quite a long time to put together. And I think there were some really nice illustrations in there as well, and I think I'm quite pleased with how it looks. But for me, I think it's more important in a way to perform my poems to an audience. So the book is almost kind of goes alongside what I do rather than being the main thing, I think.
Where do you get your inspiration from, do you think?
I write a lot for children, so a lot of it's to do with things that children, that's relevant to children's lives. So for example, school, family, a lot of it's about animals, and a big obsession of mine is food. I write a lot of poems about food. And also just kind of like I use my imagination, so kind of monsters, kind of stuff like that. And also, I think some of my poems are jokey, so they're almost like jokes. So sometimes I'll think of a joke, like a punchline for something, and then think of, right, how do I make a poem so that this joke is in the poem?
Have you always written for children?
Really interesting question. No, not at all. I started off, there was no point when I sat down and said, I'm going to write for children now. I just kind of started to write, and it turns out that the stuff I liked to write, kind of maybe quite light-hearted, sometimes a bit silly stuff, and also stuff about my own childhood, is, people told me that children might like that kind of thing. And then I remembered some of the children's books that I used to read, and I realised that actually they're quite similar in a way. So then I only decided to write for children after I'd already done a lot of writing, and then I thought children might like it. So no, I haven't always written for children, but that's most of what I do at the moment, I think.
When you've been doing workshops, do you remember any funny incidents that happened anything funny that anybody said, a question or something?
Yeah, so there was... Yeah. So the funniest question, the strangest question I've ever been asked is, if you were a monkey, what type of astronaut would you be? So that was really bizarre. And once someone a lot of the really silly stuff happens in primary schools, and there was this one kid who called out, "Custard man," like in the middle of a performance, and I've got no idea what that meant, and I don't think he did either. But yeah, kind of people say strange stuff all the time, but I really I think I set up a situation where I kind of almost encourage that, with kind of the flow of ideas and stuff. What's slushy and what's mushy and so very good to eat? What's wobbly and knobbly and is a tasty treat? What is it that I dream of when I'm shambling down the street? It's brains, 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 brains. What is that goo that's greyish blue, that thing I love to munch? What is it that I slurp on when I sit down to my lunch? What has a soggy texture blended with a pleasant crunch? It's brains, 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 brains. What is that thing that gives you life and lives inside your head? What is it that I'll nick from you as you lie in your bed? What are those tasty morsels that I need to keep me fed? They're brains, 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 brains. What is it that your teacher has that makes her very smart? What makes her good at languages and history and art? What is it that I'll gobble up before the lesson starts? Her brains, 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 brains. But chewing them is tiring, and I need some time to play. I need some relaxation, yes, I need to get away. Where is it that I'll travel to for my holiday? I'll give you a clue, they got knocked out of the World Cup before England. It's Spain, 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 Spain. What I'd like you to do is to keep your arms out like this and to give yourselves a zombie round of applause. I actually think zombies would go like this.